Welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard. I'm going to have a conversation this morning with returning guest, Mr. Mike Davis, head of U.S. Neurology Patient Value Unit at UCB. UCB is a global pharmaceutical company. He's returning to talk with us about their collaboration with the University of Washington School of Pharmacy to improve access to care for people living with epilepsy. When Mike was here before, we talked a little bit about seizures. And welcome back to the program, Mike. How are you?
Thanks, Neil. Really appreciate it. I'm doing well, and I hope the same for you, but really appreciate this opportunity again.
When we were here talking in this past summer, we talked a little bit about seizures and some treatment options. Today, we're going to talk about people living with epilepsy and an unmet need. Is that correct?
Yes, Neil. First, there's potentially, and not potentially, these are the numbers. About 30% of epilepsy patients are refractory, meaning they're looking for epilepsy control, reduction of seizures, or really elimination of seizures. And sometimes they can find a great answer in 6 months, but for 30%, they can go 9 to 20 years before they find a good match or good seizure control.
Why did you choose to collaborate with the University of Washington on this particular project, or people living with
That's
epilepsy?
A great question, Neil. Thank you. It's really driven about how we've changed our model here at UCB, and we really look at local opportunity. Many times people look at medicine as something that's sweeping across the U.S. or sweeping across the globe, and it's true conceptually, and conceptually it is, but policy and patients are much more local. And what we find University of Washington is they're a global leader and ranked number 4 in the world in pharmacy and pharmaceutical science research. So they're ranked fourth in the world. So they have the competency for one of the problems we see, one of the needs and problems we see in the marketplace for patients suffering from epilepsy.
No, so we're focusing on the pharmacist rather than the caregiver at the hospital or the facility?
Yeah, and these are the interesting facts, right? It's the specificity here that really matters. So we still believe and recommend that the healthcare provider, the physician, the nurse practitioner, the physician's assistant is still key and integral in everything with epilepsy. Here's some interesting facts. 90% live within 5 miles of their community pharmacist. So people suffering with chronic severe illnesses, 90% of them live 5 miles away from their community pharmacist. And this is another interesting fact. While these patients will see their specialist 3 to 4 times a year, or see a physician 3 to 4 times a year, they're more likely to see their community pharmacist 10 times more. So they're seeing their community pharmacist 35 to 40 times a year. So that frequency of the contact gives a greater intervention or an opportunity to have a conversation about poor seizure control, medication side effects, lack of understanding of the disease and how to manage it. And one of the other things which we find shocking but very true is poor adherence.
Complying with taking the medications the way that they're supposed to be taken.
Correct.
With that being said, with people having this much contact with their pharmacist, is the pharmacist can only give them information about the meds? What are some of the other goals of this initiative?
Great question. So this is the end product of this, as they have a structured intervention or build an opportunity for an intervention per se, or at least a discussion, right? Not an intervention as maybe the way we would just think of an intervention in the common everyday terminology of intervention. But here is they would create a care coordination report, findings back to the physician. So this is the way, in the sense of electronic medical records, or the future of this, is that we would have a loop system where if the patient speaks to the physician and then his patient speaks to the pharmacist then closes the loop back to the physician. Wow. So it's having that integrated care approach.
How are you going to make that happen? How are you going to, I guess, get the patients on board in this loop, especially if they're sometimes non-compliant?
Yes. So this is step 1, and step 2 of the project. We're moving to step 2 now of the project, where University of Washington and UCB with other thought leaders get together and they look at the needs assessment, which is obvious, but then build across best practices for that intervention. So we're right now, we are moving towards to building that solution. And the great thing here is that sometimes in the old approach, somebody would come with an agenda and they would try to get their agenda or they'd come with their work product and they would try to have people support their work product. Here, we came together with a common agenda, a common problem that we want to solve together. So not only are we collaborating, we are co-creating the solution together, but we will be involving the UCB, University of Washington's pharmacists, but also physicians and patients to actually have a solution that the group of patients and a group of physicians will understand and lean into to actually have an outcome. Now we're to the co-creation phase.
Where do you anticipate deploying the project initially?
Initially, it'll be in Washington, in that area, because we believe that's where the collaboration's occurring, right? And then we'll see if it can be transported across, how it can be scaled up, and I would say today nothing is so universally accepted. So how can it be scaled up, and then how does it need to be tweaked, where 80% of the concept works, but it continues to be modified for the local area?
Your collaboration with the University of Washington, you explained because of their expertise. Do you see collaboration with healthcare facilities as in addition to, or maybe down the line instead of, learning institutions for projects like this? Oh, yes. I would say right now our initial approach, we changed our model about going on 2 years. So right now it still takes a lot of, we're still in the infancy phase of our growth. But I do see down the line us being more involved, even more at smaller or community-based institutions versus these big academic settings. But it's just where we are, and we're focusing to make sure we learn and build appropriately, and then we'll continue to but continue to co-create and collaborate with all different sizes of institutions as we move forward. When do you anticipate, after all of the data has been gathered, how long do you think it'll take to analyze that and deliver that data to give us some more information to go on? We believe we will have full study results completed in mid-year 2021. And where can we go online and get some more information about UCB and this collaboration, and about this unmet need for people living with epilepsy? Yes, Neil. It's UCB-USA.com. Always a pleasure, Mike, and looking forward to our next conversation. Great, Neil. Really appreciate the time, and thank you again. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Mike Davis of UCB. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download it, SoundCloud, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Health Professional Radio.